Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare.
Welcome back, my friends, to my February show. I'm Jim Kruse, Army veteran. I served from 1967 to 1970, and I deployed to Korea. This show is intended to help people who did not have the honor of serving to understand what men and women who responded to their country's call, what we went through sometimes, and some of the dangerous things and the interesting things that we did. It's also there to remind the vets out there that you did things to defend your country, and you should remember that and the values that we honor. Women in the military and combat is not a new thing. In fact, ladies have been defending this country since its start. During our War of Independence, one of these ladies gained a title in history. Her name was Mary Ludwig Hayes. Her husband was an artillery gunner in the Continental Army. She went with him when the Army retreated into Valley Forge. While her spouse trained on the guns and froze and starved, Mary froze and cared for the wounded, darned garments, and fed the troops with the food that they had. Spring came, and a new army came out of that valley of despair. The Continental Army gave a battle at a place called Monmouth Courthouse. The temperature was almost 100 degrees. Her husband was manning his cannon defending a bridge. The cannon threw off a terrific heat and gets real hot to fire. So did the gunners. Mary, under fire, carried pitchers of water to cool the guns and the gunners from a stream. One of the gunners was shot. She hoisted him on her back and carried him out to safety. When she returned, her husband and many of the other gunners had passed out from the heat. Mary took the rammer and kept the cannons firing. The order was given to retreat. Mary refused and kept firing. The British attack was stopped. George Washington heard of her bravery and honored her made her a sergeant. And oh, by the way, the women who brought the water to the men in the battles, they were called Mollies. This is the story of Molly Pitcher, a revolutionary hero. Above her grave is a continental flag, and at her foot is a cannon. We have many Molly serving in our armed forces today. We have one of those here. Her name is Kimberly McGraw, better known as Kim Possible. Kim served in the Navy ashore and on the U.S. Germantown, the U.S. Harper's Ferry, and was medically retired from the Navy and is a mother of 3 children. After leaving the Navy, she attended a college at Lewis University and received a bachelor's degree in elementary education. She further went on to get a master's degree in counseling at Governor State. She works and has led several charities, including Kid Possible Worldwide, The Mission Continues, and is president of the Parent-Teacher Association at Stagg High School. She has been employed by Certified Dime Magazine, Valley View School District, and the American Society of Home Inspectors. Welcome aboard, Kim.
Thank you so much.
What made you decide to go into the Navy?
It's wonderful you asked that. When I was graduating from high school, I was a huge sports. I was known as Kim the Beast McGraw. I just could play any sport, loved to give back and connect, and 9/11 happened. I shaved my head, donated my hair, and said I was going to join the Navy to go give back to my country.
Thank you. Where'd you go for basic training?
I went to Great Lakes basic training.
How'd you like basic training?
You know, you have ups and downs. Having a shaved head as soon as you go in, they have a perception of you of who you are. And for me to shave my head and come in looking like a man, they would ask me all the time, do you think you're a man? And it's like, no, definitely not. But I could work out like a man. I can lead like a man, lead like a woman. But when you're in the military, it's everybody's trying to be uniform. You're all trying to be one. I took on Master at Arms position within my basic training group and division right away, kept it the whole entire time. I just had a way to communicate with the shipmates that were there to help them from wherever they were to get them to where we needed them to be. Whether it was making sure their rack was on a dotted line, their clothes were folded the correct way. If somebody had a weakness, somebody with that strength was able to help them out. And being able to tap into that and then meet so many incredible people, just like Molly, you talked about, that you're serving alongside with, that maybe is a leader, even for your division. The chiefs that I had for in my division, each one was so unique, but to be able to tap into them, to learn from them, to then be the best that you can, doesn't get any better than that. But of course there's challenges too in boot camp. My kids and their friends always ask, what did you hate? Like, what was the worst part about boot camp? And for me, it was definitely the gas chamber. When you are a leader and you are in the gas chamber, you are the first one in, the last one out. If you throw up, you got to throw up in your shirt. You don't want to touch your face, your pores, everything is burning. You're drooling. I mean, you got your nose is going everywhere. You're just not ladylike at all.
It's not good for men either.
Oh, I can imagine for men too. But yeah, it definitely was one of my biggest challenges. But to be able to mentally overcome some of those challenges and just challenge yourself, it really makes you reevaluate every day how you do things. My kids laugh because I take 7-minute showers sometimes. They're like, wait, you can really come out in 7 minutes? And it's like, hey, longer than it was when I was in the military in boot camp. So you have your challenges and weaknesses, and you try to work with those around you to help you along the way.
Your military occupation, your MOS, where'd you go, what did you train, and what did you train in?
So I trained for quartermaster. So that was here in Great Lakes as well. So as soon as I got out of boot camp, I was able to go to A school here local as well. And I got to learn a lot about ships, navigation, stars. And for me, it was a whole new adventure. I always loved the sky, but learning more about it, but not becoming an astronaut. And then the people that you were meeting along the way. It was a different routine. It wasn't you're stuck there all the time. We had weekend liberty then too. So being close to home, I was able to go home all the time. So everybody was mad, like, you know, my bed quarters and stuff, you had to have everything neat, but I had so much stuff I could bring from home that others couldn't, where it was like, I always say there's the Navy and then there's Kim's Navy, and you'll learn more about that as we go too, kind of why that is.
You served aboard 2 ships, the USS Germantown and the USS Harper's Ferry, both LSDs, or landing ship dock. What was your job there, and what did they do?
Awesome. So it was interesting because after I got out of A school and graduated, you're allowed to take leave, which then puts you negative in the books. But I was going home every weekend, so I was like, I'm not going home. I'm ready to go. Like, let's go to Japan, because that's where my orders, I got to choose. I was top in my class, so I chose Japan. I had friends that were on ships that were out there. So when I got out there, they were not expecting me. I get on my ship and they're like, we're not ready for you, but we have a rack for you, but we're leaving to Hawaii for 6 months. So go find your rack. So again, it's not the Navy, it's Kim's Navy.
Not everybody knows what a rack is.
So true. And I love when I go to schools, actually showing a picture of your bed, which is the rack that you lift up in your closet is under there, what seems to be your closet, maybe with a small locker too that you have maybe in middle school. So that's your actual bedroom. So I tell the kids too, the curtain that you roll across is your bedroom door. So being on that ship, we did a hall swap then. We went to Hawaii for 6 months. You worked one day, you were off 6 in Hawaii. Thank you, man, because it was a blessing. My service in the military wasn't as challenging at some points, but at the same time it was, okay, now when we're traveling there, my sister was actually there when we got there yelling at the port. So the whole entire ship learned who Kimmy McGraw is, because there's my sister on her honeymoon. Got through the port in the base because she was my sister, bawling like, I want to see her. And when we got there, we did a hall swap and got the USS Harper's Ferry. The differences in the 2 ships were incredible. When it came to showering, You went from a shower you would take like a shower, you turn it on. No, you had to press a button to conserve water. So now you're trying to wash your hair and rinse your hair, and you got to push a button, and then you're cold as you're standing there because the shower's not. So you appreciate water a little bit more with conserving even the airtight doors that they had for if there was a flood on the ship, being able to lock that down to a certain area. The size of the ship, a lot of different things were newer on the ship too. So it was really nice to be on a ship so short, where it was an older ship, to then get a more luxury, you should call it, ship. Still had the same racks, but the space was a little bit bigger. It was newer technology and things like that for navigation.
What does an LSD do?
Transports military, so a lot of Marines we would pick up with their equipment for the cargo dock to allow their equipment to come in. A lot of basketball playing days in that dock when there was no ships in there. You can not take the ball away from a hooper. So yeah, I found different ways to be able to use the ship, have fun on my time off, but still be able to work with a lot of the different things that were challenging, because you get a new ship and you have the same sailors on it, but now you're picking up 1,400 sometimes Marines on board. Now you have longer lines for eating food. You have the water conserved that would be turned off sometimes, and they have nothing to do when they're on the ship. So the Marines work out all the time, and then they smell if they don't shower and their clothes aren't clean. So it makes for a great living environment.
We won't discuss the Marines on this show.
He said we won't go there.
But we love you, my friends who are leathernecks.
Brothers and sisters, yes.
What's it like being a lady sailor?
It's interesting. So you can have benefits or you can have challenges. For me, it was, how can I really tap in just like I did in boot camp? How can I tap into the strengths and weaknesses of those around me, but challenge them while being on board? I always say it's like high school, but on a ship where nobody gets to go home because your home is all the same home. Right. So you have a lot of chaos, and the mental side of that, or how to try to figure out how to be you on that ship. You have some girls that only stick to girls and don't want to talk to males or be associated. You have some that are very alpha outgoing that are going to communicate with anybody. You have some that get a bad name or a bad rep for themselves, or things happen on a ship that are challenges that we'll probably get into later as well, that challenge a woman in different ways. And for me, again, it was having a shaved head, having people perceive me, being a girl from Chicago, because that was the closest city you could say you're from, that people would understand where you're from. For me, it was great. I fit in well. I don't think the military is for everyone. There are people that do get out or process out for different reasons, and then they have their challenges, which is a lot that I got into later as well in my life with giving back to veterans.
When you're out there on the ocean, do you get lonely? Do you miss home?
Oh, yes. And those stars, let me tell you, I always used to say, you can sit in Chicago or you could be across the world in Japan, but I feel like when you look at the moon, you're looking at the same moon. When you look, it's different things like that. So for me, that was my go-to. Being a navigator, I had access to the bridge. I got to see and know everywhere where we were, where we were going. I would go outside at night. We had an extension off the ship that you could look down and the dolphins would swim next to the ship. The moonlight would be hitting, and it was appreciating where I was, but staying connected to my family as much as I could. And having a lot of family is a lot of phone calls and a lot of calling cards back then, but it was worth it.
So as a navigator, you were close to the bridge?
Yes, I worked on the bridge.
What's that like?
It's interesting because you have the different personalities.
Now, first,
yes.
The bridge is
Yes.
where the captain and the crew actually make the ship go where it's supposed to go.
Yes, and it's the windows where you get to see out. So a lot of military members that are on board don't get to see outside. They don't know night from day. They don't get to really see out windows, where we have access to that all day. We know where we are. We're navigating through it. We're using the sun and the stars to navigate with the newer technology, GPS. So it's nice to be able to have that. And for me, it's like, how can you connect that and give back, but appreciate where you are? And being on the ship, I would make popcorn at night because the ship is completely dark. You have just a couple machine lights on and you can't see, but you would smell the popcorn. So they always knew Kim was making popcorn, but I had to stay awake. and then I had a drawer I would pull out to put my foot down. I made myself comfortable the way I was, but then being able to get along with the other people that you're working with, getting to know them. Some people just go to work, don't really know the people that they work with, and miss out on opportunities of how they can help each other. Even if it's a challenge that they're going through, when you open up to somebody, it was kind of like I was that counselor on the ship. So I knew everybody from the XO, the CO, the boatswain mates. You know, I'm working with all of these different individuals and making the best of it.
A lot of the people that watch the show did not have the honor of serving. The CO is the commanding officer. The XO is the executive officer. That's the second person. If something happens to the captain, or he's the one that runs the ship.
Yes, he's the man. Or the woman.
Or
Never
the woman.
know.
No, there's a lot of lady captains and admirals now.
Yes, it's amazing.
You know. You also served on shore bases. Where did you serve?
So when I got overseas, I was stationed in Sasebo, Japan, and it was more of a country, I would say, all the time. It was not city-like, near Yokosuka, which was closer to Tokyo. That was another location that I was stationed, and then Okinawa, Japan as well. I was there when I was pregnant with my son. I almost lost my son, and they did not have neonatal care in Japan on a military base. So I did have to go to Okinawa for a couple months, and it was a Marine base. Gotta love our brothers and sisters, but being able to connect again and give back. So those were the 3 bases that I served on.
Oh, okay. Why'd you leave the Navy?
I was actually medically discharged. I was getting prepared on our USS Harper's Ferry. After we got our ship, we picked up Marines and we were training for going out to deploy. And during training, I had a seizure while fighting a fire. The next day, I had 3 more seizures. So
You were fighting a fire?
I was fighting a fire, yes. Fire simulations that they set
I
up.
see.
So yeah, we were in training and
I
I was
see.
doing
Okay.
training, and something with the chemicals ended up causing some.
Like I try to tell people, the military is a dangerous job, even in peacetime.
Very true.
When you left the Navy, what made you decide what career path you wanted to go?
So I knew before I went into the military that I had a care and a nature to want to connect with kids' families. So I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I used to play class. I talked about calling a lot from home. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. And then my parents were split, so I had a lot of people to call to say the same story over and over. But teaching them, as being the teacher of teaching them when I was younger, I knew I wanted to help. So after I got out of the military, I enrolled in Moraine Valley for a teaching program, and then transferred to Governor State University for my bachelor's in education. When I was going for that, I was working in different schools with kids. One of the kids had bipolar in a class that I was at, and for me it was how to connect with that kid at where he was at, just like in the military. Not saying that bipolar military connected, but it was wherever they're at. And for me, it was doing that allowed me to see, okay, I see the struggle that teachers have. I want to be a counselor, so now I could give back to those teachers that are leading the kids, but connect with a lot more kids. So then I went to Lockport Township High School and was doing a student internship program there, which was a blessing to get into because I flew through my master's degree program in less than 2 years. And we lost 2 students that year to car accidents. And to see again the kids and to have been dealt with that in the military before of that loss, and being able to counsel people through that of things that they've seen, I was able to connect with those kids. I also lost my high school sweetheart when I was young. So knowing what those kids felt like, losing somebody, and maybe not necessarily having people understand, was a big connection I could see through school and kids and death and then the military. So I started connecting a lot with that and giving back. So I worked with that school out there as well, and it's just the way that you can connect with people to give back connected me then with veterans. When I was getting my master's degree and saw a gentleman, another Marine symbol on his bag, I said, "Thank you for your service." Talked to him for a few minutes, was late to my final exam, but learned about the mission continues. And I was like, wait, you can get money to help people? That's what I do. I can get money, I can get resources to veterans and networks across the world that connect with non-veterans to give back to communities. Sign me up. So that changed my career path from being a counselor in schools to motivational speaking, nonprofit work, working with military veterans, and anyone who wants to support military veterans as well. How to make it easy so they could give back too.
How did you get the name Kim Possible?
So, not really knowing a lot of veteran organizations, because when I got out of the military, I was mad at the military. I wanted to stay in. Yes, I still had seizures, but that didn't mean I still couldn't do things. I was doing so many things on a military base, connecting with Japanese orphanages, so sailors and soldiers and Marines that were on base that had nothing to do could jump on a bus and go give back to an orphanage. And for me, it was like, knowing I wanted to do all of that, it was like, okay, well, let me just tap into that. So when the Mission Continues started, they had an idea. They're like, we're flying a plane, but we're building the plane while flying in the air. Do you want to join? And I'm like, yes. And it was their vision of how to connect communities, veterans, and giving back. And for me, it's like, that's what I'm already doing. So I became Kim Possible because what we were doing here in Chicago, all the other platoons across the United States weren't doing the projects we were doing, weren't doing the numbers we were doing. I was already doing this for years. So for me to fill that position and get $5,000, I spent $4,994 the first project, but still had more projects to do. We did over 200 projects one year, 400 projects another year, but it was connecting with others.
What's involved in this project?
Sure. So you're very familiar with projects and giving back with care packages and connecting with the community to provide some service to give back. Projects are, we call them service projects. It's being a leader, it was doing everything for that project. Who are you connecting with? Who are you going to give back to? Where are you going to get your money? And then motivating those volunteers to work and come together. For me, it was, with the Mission Continues, it was garden projects. There's food deserts is what they're called. There's no healthy food options available for them to eat at any store in that location. So it's how can we build gardens in an empty lot that they're selling for $1 through the city or whatever it was at the time, that has somewhere close that can maintain that garden, but build, grow, and do things to give back to the community. So we started doing that, and that's how Kim Possible came about. It was like, all of these projects, like, no, we have $5,000, we have 1 week to do this project, we need it done, and it was like, call Kim Possible. And it was, I would just make it happen. It was like, let me make a call, that person would call 5 of their people, the next call would call 10 of their, like, and it's just like this, I always say it's like a ripple, you know, you throw a pebble into the water and you just see it go and it multiply. And it's, when you're that conduit, electric conduit, to make those things happen for other people, I can get more done. Kim Possible isn't just me. Kim Possible is me and my whole team of people that are helping make all of these things happen. We would have military veterans work with communities. You have CEOs with their family rolling up their sleeve, working next to somebody that's maybe homeless, that's coming and cleaning up different places to help this nonprofit grow, and the connections they had of jobs, relationships, and marriages, like the philanthropic work of how we can then multiply and give back to more, because we have all of these nonprofits coming together to give back for one cause in one community, but then it's maintained after that.
Well, you've worked for several charities, haven't you?
Volunteered, I guess you could say.
Yes,
Work is the, yes, but for me it's, I love the word volunteer because it's what I pour into and what I want to give back. And when you work, sometimes people look at it like I work for a paycheck. Some of the teachers get tired, they're just there to collect the money. The referees are just there to go on vacation. They don't care about calls. No, but for me it's that volunteering and connecting with those organizations like the Mission Continues helps service projects, communities across the world give back. You have, oh, go ahead.
I understand, believe me. You know, when you do something and you're helping other people, people don't realize it, I think, that you feel good. It makes you feel good.
I heard it at a Tony Robbins event, and it was your mind waves and your heart waves beat at the same exact time when you're giving back to others. And for me, it's even my daughter. She was 6 months old during COVID. I put a little Mission Continue shirt on her. She's been on my chest for 2 hours going through a line, filling up bags to give back to those that need. I sit her on the table for a photo shoot and hand her a bag of veteran coffee, and she picks it up and just puts it in the bag at 6 months old. So she was our motivation and pushing of saying, if this 6-month-old can give back during COVID, so can you. Volunteer in some way.
Excuse me.
No.
My last question I ask all of my guests, how do you feel about being a vet?
I love being a vet. I think that when I got out of the military, I had a lot of challenges that I didn't work through in order to not have that headbutt of I'm upset. A lot of veterans go to the VA, don't get their VA benefits, they're button heads with the VA, they're upset. Maybe a woman goes into the VA, she gets maybe hassled or harassed in a way that made her feel inappropriate, she doesn't come back for services anymore. So there was a lot of things that sometimes prevent us veterans from being able to access all of the resources and nonprofits and things that are out there to give back to us because we served. When you talked about that story in the very beginning, like you feel the goosebumps go throughout the body of listening to how that little bit of bringing a pitcher of water, what it did for those soldiers, what it did for their weapons that they were using, that little bit and how that nurturing and how that care can give. And being a veteran, sometimes we have things that make us upset about something with the military, but I love seeing people that are non-veterans come to some of these events that we do and seeing the veterans work and the bond that we have, the brother and sisterhood that we have of family. That's why my son's at U of I playing football, because it's family. He said, you can't find another group that can just get together in a building, never met anybody before, and have that love, that support, that kindness. Like, we're just a whole different breed, I really think. But when we can connect with others that are non-vets in different ways and give back for vets or for the community, I love being a veteran because it helps me have access to schools to meet amazing people like you.
It's like, I understand what you're saying. When we first started, I've been doing the care packages now for about 21 years. And one of the things that I really enjoy is that we have people come there all the time, sometimes vets, kids getting service hours, older people, nurses from Northwestern and Payless Hospital. I've never seen one of them walk away from there without a smile on their face, because they know they're doing something good for somebody else.
Yes, and thank you for your care packages that you sent as well to a friend of mine. They received it, and to open it up and have no expectations, but to be blessed and to see the amazing work that you guys are doing. It's little things like that that veterans or soldiers that are currently serving really appreciate. And like you said, it's those people that decide with their heart, I want to give back in some way, and they decide today's the day I'm going to give back, and they go and do it, they become a much stronger, brighter ray of sunshine than they were earlier.
Well, I thank you for that. Thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to present this pin and this coin for you.
Oh, thank you.
To honor you and thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you again so much.
I'll go back to the old Jim Kruse. I'd like to read a letter every month I receive from a unit that deployed overseas that we are supporting. Mr. Kruse and friends, on behalf of Task Force Tiger Shark, and especially Delta Company, 1st of the 229th Hammerheads, I want to thank you for your generous gift. Thoughtful items and lots of candy. I especially love your teams decorating the boxes, including hand-drawn menu with illustrations of McDonald's. I can say with certainty that the nearest McDonald's is 6,500 miles away, but your drawings made it look so real. The boxes of goodies I received were passed on to D Company, the largest of our companies. They repair and take care of our helicopters, which is essential to our success. That means that you contributed to our mission and readiness. God bless you for your thoughtfulness. For God and Country, Chaplain William Anderson. The boxes were designed by school children. Our support through care packages means that a great deal of to our men and women serving overseas and afloat. And as we have seen in the last few weeks, it's a dangerous job. A few of our soldiers were killed in attacks by terrorists, and 5 Marines killed in a helicopter crash. Whatever we can do to build up that morale and fight loneliness is our goal. A box filled with goodies may not seem much to a regular person, but to someone who's serving in harm's way, it means that I am doing something that somebody else understands and I'm defending them. One last thing, we men and women who wore the uniform lost a true friend this month. 18 USO tours and numbers of songs about us. I'm an American soldier, an American. Like my brothers and my sisters, I know the sacrifice. When liberty's in jeopardy, I'll always do what's right. I'm out here on the front lines. Sleep in peace tonight. Rest in peace, Toby Keith. Thank you again for spending some time with us this month and listening to our stories and of the men and women who serve. I hope to see you again next month here on PHTV4. Thank you, and especially to the 3 soldiers, 5 Marines who died and their families, honor and respect.